Ex-IPO.
I'm not yet. I'm not. I'm like, it's stocks. Buy the stocks. Acorn, buy the stocks. We're going to the moon. We're going to Mars.
You know, it did crash. It's like that old have you guys seen that classic Bitcoin video where he's like, Bitcoin, it went up to $100 and it crashed all the way down to $20. Then it went up to $1,000 and it crashed. And he just keeps going through like all of the peaks and it crashed all the way, and it keeps crashing to higher numbers each time. That's how I'm feeling with my SpaceX.
I'm gonna find that video. I want to see this.
Yeah, hold on. Let me. Hold on. We're 9 minutes 38 in here. Let's
finish this video.
No. I'm gonna say it. Let's bring up the.
Oh no, I found it. It's this YouTube channel called Alex. Don't buy Bitcoin. It's going to crash.
Yeah. Okay. So 9 minutes 38. I'm just gonna put that in the chat so we can get back to this one. But I gotta show this video on stream. It's a brilliant video, and this video is why I buy Bitcoin once per week, every week at the exact same time.
This one time, Bitcoin went from 6 cents all the way to 36 cents, and then it crashed down to 21 cents. And then another time, Bitcoin went from 85 cents all the way to $29, and then it crashed to $3. And then another time, Bitcoin went all the way to $213, and then it crashed all the way to $70. And then another time, Bitcoin went all the way to $1,100, and then it crashed all the way to $239. So the moral of the story is, don't buy Bitcoin, because you know it's going to crash.
You know it's going to crash, dude. You know it's going to crash. So don't buy it.
Never buy Bitcoin.
All right, let's get back to this guy. 9 minutes 38 seconds.
Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, that's one of my point with that was. I was talking to Chronic about this in DMs before, where I see space as enormously undervalued. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor.
This is science fiction advice, though.
This is my personal opinion. I see space as enormously undervalued, and as it turns out, there isn't actually a stock where I can just spend money on space, and so I got to pick a company. And what is the space company right now? Well, it's SpaceX, of course. They are the ones built far and away massively ahead in terms of space infrastructure. And who's going to make all the money when space is finally properly valued and we're properly exploiting space? It's going to be the people who have the infrastructure in place. So my strategy with investing is I'm a hopium investor. I think, what would be the next big thing if people fucking wised up for once? And then I invest in that. Because I decided to do this after I looked at when NVIDIA went up massively. And I was like, wait a minute. I knew about AI years ago. And I knew it was going to be a big thing years ago. So I could have predicted that NVIDIA would have massively taken off. Because you need to train AI models, of course. They're building the infrastructure. I could have predicted that. And I failed to. So now I'm like, okay, well, what is going to be the next big thing? If people wise up a little bit. So I've got stocks in all sorts of high technology places. That's why I'm buying SpaceX. SpaceX, it'll probably go down, right? It probably will. Most companies go down at various points.
Eventually.
And then I'll just look at that as being, well, SpaceX is currently on sale. I can get more of it. And then I'll be...
SpaceX is on 60% off.
Yeah, and then I'll be even wealthier in the future. And that's why the other day I bought a bunch of stocks in like uranium companies, because it's like, well, what if people wised up and stopped seeing nuclear as like this devil? And that could definitely happen, because there's going to be massively increasing power consumption requirements as AI data centers become more common. So how do you fit those power requirements? Well, you could use nuclear. And then I'll make a bunch of money off of all my stocks in like uranium companies and shit like that. And then I'm currently looking into like, is there any viable company which might be able to get fusion working, or like room temperature superconductors? I've got a bunch of stocks in different material science companies. I've got stocks in Aspen aerogels, right? Because Aspen aerogels, if you've got all these like superconductors which are like near room temperature, well, you're going to need some pretty good insulation for those things. What is the best insulator I know of? Well, it's aerogel. And Aspen aerogels, they're the only guys who can produce aerogel, so I'm going to put some money in there. Like, this is my investment strategy. I'm the hopium strategy. I'm like, On the other end of the spectrum from what's his face, the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett. I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. There's this story I heard. I believe Peter Thiel tells it, where he was trying to pitch SpaceX to Warren Buffett, and he said, "Well, I'm not going to invest in Mars, but I will invest in Mars bars because if we get there, they're going to want to eat chocolate." Which, fair enough. It is an investment strategy which has massively paid off for Warren Buffett, but he's never going to be on like the ground floor of the next big thing. I want to be on the ground floor of the next big thing because I don't have Warren Buffett's skills in terms of like picking out which company is going to go up by like 0.5% and when to sell that company. Like, I don't have those skills. Warren Buffett has incredible skills when it comes to investing, which I just don't have, but I can predict, well, what would be the next logical step in terms of our technological evolution and try and get in on the ground floor of that thing.
Yeah, the hopium strategy.
It's the hopium strategy, and thus far it is paying off for me massively. I am also like diversified, you know. I'm not retarded. I do have like a bunch of this random like bullshit stocks, like, you know, Costco and shit. Yeah, no, I'm up 5% on my stock portfolio, and it looks like just a fucking like,
Nice.
it looks like a goddamn hockey stick because I just plateaued forever, and then I suddenly just boop,
Anybody?
shot up. Because I did get on the IPO.
There is economic inequality. Generally, these
Dude, stop doing that cut.
states operate with a concentrated elite at the top that enrich themselves off of the working class. While there have been instances,
You know, so somebody's saying, I'm planning on shorting SpaceX in chat. You know what? Respect. If somebody's actually going out there and saying, I think SpaceX at the moment is overvalued, and they're actually shorting the stock, it's like, okay, you put your money where your mouth is. I wouldn't do that. But there's so many people who are saying, there's no way SpaceX is worth however many trillions that it's claiming. Nah, it's way overvalued. It's going to crash at exactly this point. And I'm like, okay, well, short the stock. Short the stock and you'll make a bunch of money. And none of them are shorting the stock. That is ludicrous to me. I can't take you seriously.
of these states lifting up lower classes, as we've seen the rise of the middle class in China, this in fact still has to do with capitalism, where the central government in China have operated with.
This has to do with capitalism, where we see the central government in China.
Capitalism is in central government.
Yeah, capitalism is when Chinese Communist Party. And the more Chinese Communist Party you have, the more capitalism you have. Like, can you listen to yourself for 1 second, Lucid Politics, please? I don't want to be too mean to this guy. He seems like a beautiful man to me. But I mean, listen to
That's one
yourself.
for the clips.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a woman here, so I've got a turns me on. Listen to yourself for like 12 seconds. You're looking at the Chinese Communist Party. And you think, yeah, paragons of capitalism. No, they're communists, right? They're just throwing a bunch of LEDs on every skyscraper and going, look, prosperity.
Well, what I would say with the Chinese Communist Party is, like, my understanding is basically from watching Prax spend TikToks. So, right, like, you have the Maoist era where they are real, like, hardline communists. They're trying to jump into the future via dialectical processes, right? And then you have, like, when Mao dies and you get Deng Xiaoping in power, and he's like, you know, poverty is not socialism, is what he says, you know. And he's like, let's just let people have a little bit of capitalism, let them have a little bit of capitalism. I mean, and at that time, it's kind of understating the volition of the Chinese people, where they were just kind of starting to be like, we're just going to start privatizing our own farms and, like, doing things on our own, like experimenting by ourselves. And then once that started being very successful, the party was like, oh, we need to jump in front of this parade. We need to actually be like, no, yeah, you're right. We should do this. We should do these reforms, right? So like there was kind of an autonomous, like, Chinese capitalization, and the party was like, well, this sounds like a good way to, you know, maintain our power, right? But anyway, so like there was that reform period, and then as I understand now, there's kind of like a reversion under the Xi Jinping government, where they're kind of going back into, like, trying to get state ownership of the economy again. Yeah.
It's letting the capitalism build up. It's almost like an explicit form of what we've always been saying the state is the whole time. Where to build up, you need some level of capitalism to build up this capital structure that is then predatorized, parasitized by the state. Right? And they're just doing it explicitly in real time. They just swoop in, take up all this capital. It's like, ooh, that didn't go so well. Let's let a little bit of capitalism go on. And we come back in. Like, that is China.
It's the cycle of evasion.
Exactly.
within the capitalist system, and in some places repressed their people. This was not a workers' revolution in which workers
My God, it totally was. Like, look into the Cultural Revolution. This was a workers' revolution. What are you talking about here? It's insane to me.
gained lots of rights.
The Cultural Revolution is such a
Oh,
crazy point in history.
Oh, because it's
Like,
not a
when
workers'
you look
revolution
at-
because they didn't gain a bunch of rights. Well, they did gain the rights to fucking seize whatever property they wanted from the bourgeois. What rights didn't they gain that they should have gained under Marxism? What rights are there that they should have gained per
Well, you
Marxism?
see,
that
the
they didn't
Cultural
gain?
Revolution is crazy because it's not like there were even bourgeoisie there to kill anymore. Because like the communists won in 1949. The Cultural Revolution starts like the late 50s. 1959 is when the Sino-Soviet split happens, and then you have the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution for the next like 20 years, right? So like the communists had already been in power for like 20 years, right? And then they did the Cultural Revolution, right? And so like during the Cultural Revolution, you had students gaining the right to beat their teachers to death for being like for teaching Western science. You know, Einstein invented the nuclear bomb. That's why we can't teach relativity. Really? Okay.
Clearly an evil belief, Chronic. I don't know what you're talking about.
and helped to operate the state. It's in fact a concentrated center of elites.
This is curious. This isn't a response to this guy right now. But it is curious that you could have the concept of like evil knowledge, anti-revolutionary knowledge, because yeah, he invented the general relativity was used to invent the atomic bomb, right? Okay, let's take that. Let's say that because of Einstein we were able to make nuclear bombs. Well, his theory was then successful. It was a successful theory. It did indeed correctly predict physics.
You misunderstand. You need to. It's about class consciousness, right? So if you're using bourgeois science, you're developing a bourgeois consciousnness, right? So if you want to become a proletarian, you need to develop a proletarian consciousness. We need proletarian science, right? And so that way, see, that's the only. It's the primacy of consciousness. There you go.
It's insane to me. It's hard to like put yourself in the shoes of somebody who can believe that you can discover correct physics, but that physics is incorrect. They love contradictions. Like
it's slightly different, right? It's like it's to do with the allegiance of the theory of the knowledge, right? It's about like what your beliefs say about your allegiances, rather than like whether these like beliefs are literally correct descriptions of reality, right? It's you know it's very like a stupid. Like socially, it's like that midwit mindset or something. Like, you know, am I allowed to believe this? Would society allow me to believe this? Right? That's the kind of thing they're trying to inculcate, right? When they do go through that sort of thing, it's like taking that to the next level. It's like, you know, if you believe this, then you all believe it. You are you're a class enemy and you need to be killed.
That enrich themselves while the working class in some cases can climb up the ladder slightly, but continue to be subjugated by a repressive government using capitalist apparatuses. Example.
Okay. This government is repressing people through capitalist apparatuses. So
Capitalism would repress people.
The famous capitalist apparatus of having state central planning, famously capitalist. Like, are we being serious here, Lucid Politics? You can say that it's fascism or whatever. I'll let you make that error. But making the error that state central planning is capitalism, it's the opposite, bro. Like they're repressing people through socialist apparatuses. Like, are we being serious here?
I mean, I think this is a mistake that like a lot of people make when they confuse like capitalism for just the status quo, mixed markets. And if they just mean capitalism by the status quo, then I will agree with them that yeah, sure, capitalism is flawed, but like. So I think this goes back to the question of should we try to reclaim like capitalism as just free markets? And is there a difference between the term capitalism and free market? And if like all the normies like don't understand the difference, is there a point in us still using the language of capitalism, even though a lot of normies just think capitalism means status quo?
Yeah, so I am 100% in the camp that we should be proud capitalists, and we should be proud of that term, because they hate the term capitalism. The things they hate about it is the things we love about it. Right? They don't hate that it's repressive. They're not being honest there. They hate that it allows a company to do what it wants and, you know, hire and fire people at will. They hate the free market aspects of it. That is what they hate about it. And that's what we love about it. So we should absolutely embrace that term.
The one thing I would say about like the use of capitalism by particularly leftists and sometimes normies, they basically don't really mean markets. What they really tend to mean, in the most charitable interpretation, I have to say, is basically when there's a group of people who are owning the means of production, and then there's a group of people who are working who don't own the means of production, right? Who don't own like the factories and the businesses, right? And that's how you can say the Soviet Union was state capitalism, right? Because you had the state boards and like the government, like the Soviets, like the planners owned the companies, and then you had the laborers who didn't own the companies, right? That's how you have state capitalism, right? And that's how you have state capitalism in China, is because you have these free market elements, and then you have elements where you have state-owned companies where the bureaucrats own the companies and the laborers don't own the companies, right? And so basically what the Marxist, the vulgar Marxist identifies as capitalism is when there's like a group of people who have the companies and there's a group of people who don't have the companies. But what they fail to analyze is like whether the person who acquired the capital, like the company, the means of production, acquired that through business acumen, through like ethical conduct by like actually producing and trading, or whether they're a fucking state bureaucrat.
Mm-hmm.
Of this are state-owned enterprises. We think of state-owned gas companies like Gazprom in modern Russia. We think of the numerous state-owned corporations in China that usually often orient themselves around technology. This is not Marxism. This is not communism or socialism.
You hit it right on the head there, Chronic. He's going into exactly what you said.
This is state-ran capitalism. And through this, they continue to repress people while enriching themselves and gaining more and more resources. So rather
he's almost going down like a capitalism is when bad route. Capitalism is when people enrich themselves and they don't give to others. Like this is why Ayn Rand was so particular with what selfishness meant. There are three options basically. You can be enriching yourself at the expense of others, sacrificing yourself for the benefit of others, altruism, or you can be just selfish and enrich yourself without taking from others, right? This is a whole big... Acorn will, of course, know this. I believe this is in Fountainhead, or it might be Atlas Shrugged. It blends together in my mind a little bit.
I haven't read Atlas Shrugged yet, and I've only done the first two chapters of The Fountainhead, so...
There you go.
But
it's all across Rand's fiction, this notion. Like, what does it mean to be truly selfish? It's not... I don't want this... I believe this is in Galt's speech. I want no man to sacrifice himself for me, nor to sacrifice other men for my sake. Right?
I think the primary error people make when they hear Rand say selfishness and they think like I'm gonna eat other people because that's like selfish, right? The primary error is that they are taking desire as like an intrinsic element, right? So like when people hear selfishness, I do what I desire to do. That would be what will be selfish. Like I satisfy my own desires, whether or not those desires are rational, right? So I might desire to be a murderer, and then I go out and murder people, and that'll be a selfish act from that viewpoint, right? But like Rand, when she says selfish, it's not just do what you desire; it's do the things that would be good for you, given the requirements of your life, right? And murdering is not a requirement of your life. Not murdering is a requirement of your life. Being ethical is what the requirements of your life are, right? But the idea of selfishness is that you should be the recipient of the values. Like you are the focus of your actions, right? Not that you should just do whatever pops into your head that you desire to do, right? Because your desires might be irrational. Your desires might not be the right desires, right? So that's the primary error people seem to make when they misunderstand what is meant by selfishness. It's not that it's not just do what you want. It's do what would be good for you.
Yeah, exactly. Because she's obviously not a whim worshipper. I quite like the way that Roman Viking 95 put it in chat. He puts the trichotomy as sadism, masochism, and production. That's exactly right. That is how objectivists see this. Also, I did the germ. I'll survive the Nazis because I count like this, so I'll survive if I'm ever in Glorious Bastards. Like I count with the thumb first.
Working class gains very little semblance of power or influence in society. This is no different than capitalist societies that are democratic throughout the world. You think about this in the United States, where we have billionaires that are influencing elections. We have billionaires in Western Europe that are continuing to assert their influence. And just because somebody puts the facade of communism, Marxism...
Let me just go back to that for a second.
Throughout the world. You think about this in the United States, where we have billionaires that are influencing elections.
Billionaires that are influencing elections. So which part of that does he not like? Because is he against influencing elections? Well, could you ever be in favor of democracy and be against influencing elections? well, then you'd want no campaigning whatsoever.
Communication.
No
Not like
communication.
talk. Imagine, like I go to work, right? And I'm talking to my friend about the upcoming federal election in Australia. I'm like, oh, who are you voting for? He's like, oh, I'm voting for Labour. I'm like, oh, you should vote for the Libertarians. And immediately the Australian federal police like encircle the building. They're like, come out, you're guilty of influencing the election.
Like, yeah, this is nonsense, and this is because it sounds bad to a normie when you say influencing an election. It sounds nefarious in some way. It's like surely that's what elections are about. In the Steelman case for democracy, you would want to be able to influence an election. You influence an election by voting. By voting, you influence the outcome of that election.
I think what he's getting at by saying billionaires influencing elections is that they're influencing it disproportionately to how other people will influence it. So it's basically based on the snug premise of equality. That like billionaires influence it disproportionately. So
exactly.
I actually think this works as that, because I think that like imagine if like there was a disproportionate influence towards communism, right? Imagine that there was like, you know, the communist billionaire from China, and he's like financing a way to the election of the American Communist Party, or the CPUSA, you know. I think this guy would be very happy about that. Like it's not that it's disproportionate. It's just that he's influencing the election away from the thing he wants to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And then this gets back to what Praxman usually says, is that most people don't actually like democracy, right? And it's not the Hoppian, like, you know, he's arguing basically like most people only like democracy when the thing that they want gets in, right? They're like, oh, I love democracy, as long as it's the communists who are winning the election. I love democracy as long as it's the Labour Party in power. But the moment that the people start voting for something that they don't like,
that's
suddenly
fascism.
Democracy is being unduly influenced, right? It's like we can't have this influence in our politics of undemocratic elements, right? It's like, what do you mean undemocratic? It's exactly what the people voted for.
Anti-revolutionary, Chronic. It's anti-revolutionary.
It's anti-revolutionary. Yeah. So basically, like, I think the real case here is not that like they don't want outsized influence in democracy. They don't want like it's just that they just want their side to win. If the Democratic vote is for the thing they like, that's democratic. If the Democratic vote is for the thing they don't like, that's undemocratic. That's it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We have billionaires in Western Europe that are continuing to assert their influence. And just because somebody puts the facade of communism, Marxism, or socialism onto the title of their state.
You know, I will say, I do hope that Lucid Politics, he does watch this, and maybe we can have like a debate out of it or something. I think it would be good. Obviously we're shitting on him quite heavily here, but this guy isn't like your average 42 subscriber YouTube channel. He's clearly putting a lot of effort into this, and as we know by the Labour theory of value,
that means it's high value.
That means it's high value.
But yeah, I want to say, like, you know, just by the physiognomy check, he doesn't look very ugly, which means that he must be spiritually in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he just kind of wants good things to happen. He's just misguided. So maybe we could.
And as Acorn will know from reading The Fountainhead, Ayn Rand was a big believer in physiognomy, at least for her fictional characters. All of the evil characters, she describes them as grotesque monsters. All of the good characters are Giga Chad.
Giga Chad energy, let's go.
That does not, in fact, make it socialist. So with this, we have a world shaped by capitalist structures, where elites manipulate narratives around nationalism, ideology, to pit workers.
Manipulate narratives. What specifically does that mean? Does it mean they're just giving their own take on it?
It's the same thing as having outsized influence in the democratic election. It's when you put out news, you're manipulating the narrative.
Yeah.
When you write articles, then you put out media, you're manipulating the narrative. That's what you're doing.
You're manipulating the narrative unless you're manipulating it in favor of socialism. In which case,
we're manipulating the narrative right now. We're you know, on this live stream. That's what we're doing. We're manipulating the narrative around socialism.
He's manipulating the narrative around Marxism.
Yeah, he's literally doing that because he was lying about what Marxism was earlier. He was saying like, well, Marx said it was likely that communism was a rise. It's like, no, he's explicitly saying it's inevitable. Communism is inevitable. Like but he's not manipulating the narrative because he's advocating for Marxism. Therefore, he can't be a manipulator. We're being the anti-revolutionaries here. Sorry, guys.
And the working lower and middle classes against each other so they can continue to entrench themselves in power. Understanding that we have not, in fact, had a Marxist state before, states that label themselves as socialist or Marxist are, in fact, operating within a capitalist system, and understanding that academics use the Marxist theory to identify systemic inequalities in society and understand patterns of political mobilization. is useful because it helps us to demystify the reality of what Marxism is, and that in fact many people in the news media and on social media that demonize Marxism are actually doing it for their own benefits to continue to entrench themselves in a system that supports the capitalist elites, the media elites, and to ensure that labor-based...
I mean, there's nothing more to say than to just loudly sigh at this guy at this point. Buzzwords, 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 buzzwords.
This class-based
Capitalist
political
system,
action,
demystifying the situation. I feel like the Marxist approach really mystifies the situation. It's because like you have these historical processes which are acting like way above you in some way that are just kind of pushing history in a certain direction. It's like, well, how can I see that in my life? How can I see that in the world I actually exist in? And it's like, well, you just see like these capitalist forces. The capitalists are oppressing you. So like, you know, you just kind of have to like, you know, I think that's kind of why they got this super application where everyone kind of just sees capitalism when they see bad thing. It's because like there actually is no specific understanding of capitalism as a specific kind of, you know, arrangement of property rights, of ethics, of like this is what capitalism is. It's capitalism is one bad thing, and so therefore whenever you have bad thing, you can call that capitalism, right?
is continue to be perceived as a stain on society and something that shouldn't happen. So recognizing that
again, he's doing this ethical language, a stain on society. What does that mean, Mr. Scientist? Scientist, you're a Marxian scientist, of course. What is a stain on society in purely scientific terms? What does that mean? Of course, he won't be able to fucking answer.
I had this argument with this guy who's like, I mean, he calls himself a pragmatist, and he has a very big influence from Marxism, right? So he's he's an academic, he's a humanities student, right? And I was talking to him about natural law, and he's like, yeah, for sure, I believe in natural law, you know. And then like I kept talking to him, and he contradicted himself. He's like, wait, so do you believe in natural law or not? It's like, like I have this feeling like. Most of these Marxists who use this ethical language, they're like very judgmental, like capitalism's evil, there should not be billionaires, I think it's unethical to have billionaires. If you ask them like, well, do you believe that there's like natural, moral, like, you know, like, what are the ethical requirements for human life, right? Do they actually believe like in a secular natural ethics? Do they think there's like there's an objective set of standards that humans should like live by? No, I think most of them would be like, well, no, I think we're just kind of like, you know, we're kind of apes, hairless apes on a ball through space, and they'll know it's like the what would it be?
The Grand Canyon argument.
Grand Canyon, like nihilist, like, you know, man, there's no point. There's like we're not like important in the grand scheme of the universe. Blah blah blah. So that, and like there's no God to make rules for us, right? Or whatever. It's like I feel like that's probably what they would fall into if they weren't wanting to complain about capitalism.
To clarify the Grand Canyon argument for those who are not familiar, I get this from Leonard Peikoff. So let me. This is in the Fountainhead. So Acorn, you'll get to this at some point. May I name another vicious bromide you've never felt? Which one? You've never felt how small you were when looking at the ocean. He laughed. Never. Nor looking at the planets, nor at the mountain peaks, nor at the